Before they were known for quiet interiors and posh accents, British lorries earned their reputation the hard way, roaring through post-war rubble, hauling steel through mud-soaked roads, and outlasting everything else on the motorways. The secret? Their engines. Not just powerful, untouchable. These diesel beasts didn't flinch at overloading, didn't quit in the cold, and didn't need fancy electronics to keep moving. They just started up, growled low, and kept hauling, day after brutal day. Back in the 1950s and 60s, British-built lorries weren't trying to win beauty contests. They were built to work, and the engines under their bonnets were pure iron grit. Names like Gardner, Leyland, and Cummins UK didn't just mean performance, they meant trust. You could load these trucks to the sky, run them through the Highlands, and they'd come back coughing smoke and spitting power, begging for more. These engines were the reason British hauliers dominated the roadways from Liverpool to London and beyond. Take the Gardner 6 LXB, an inline-6 diesel that became legendary across the UK and Europe. It wasn't flashy, it didn't roar like a V8, but it ran forever. This engine could clock 1,000,000 miles with just basic maintenance. Some mechanics swore you could strip one down blindfolded. With its low rev torque and bulletproof construction, the 6 LXB powered lorries from ERF, Foden, and Seddon Atkinson with near religious consistency. Fleet owners loved it, drivers worshipped it, and it wasn't just about longevity. Gardner engines ran clean for their time. Low smoke, high efficiency, and just enough grunt to pull 40 tons up the M62 without drama. That's why so many of them kept running long after the trucks around them rusted into history. In fact, you can still find 6 LXBs ticking away in restored classics, purring like it's 1972. Some even run on boats now, because why waste an engine that refuses to die? Then came Leyland, a titan in British transport. Their 0680 straight 6 was a staple of the 1960s. Big, brash, and tough as nails. You'd find it pulling cement mixers, tippers, and haulage lorries across the country. The 0680 wasn't subtle. It smoked, it rattled, but it got the job done, whether you were climbing the Pennines or idling in London traffic. And paired with a semi-crash gearbox, it gave drivers a real workout. No synchromesh, just skill and timing. Leyland also gave us the 680 Power Plus, a slightly angrier version that pushed more torque and kept pace with early European contenders. It helped build the modern UK, literally. From tower cranes to bridge beams, this engine hauled the backbone of Britain's infrastructure, and it rarely broke down, because back then, failure wasn't an option. If your truck died on the road, you fixed it, with tools, grit, and whatever part you had in the glove box. By the 1970s, British lorries faced new competition. Volvo, Scania, and Mercedes-Benz started creeping into the market with smoother rides and more refined engines. But British builders didn't back down. Companies like ERF and Foden doubled down on durability, slotting in big-bore Cummins L10s and Rolls-Royce diesels that gave foreign rigs a serious run for their money. These weren't sports cars, they were rolling anvils with steering wheels. The Rolls-Royce Eagle was a standout, a 12-liter monster that powered everything from tanks to trucks. It was brutally reliable. In lorries, it brought instant respect. If you had an Eagle under the hood, no one questioned your payload. It drank fuel, sure, but it paid for itself in uptime. With torque figures that would twist the frame of a weaker truck, it could climb, haul, and cruise all day long, and it sounded like war. What made all these engines untouchable wasn't just power, it was simplicity. No digital controls, no plastic parts, just cast iron, mechanical injectors, and a blueprint you could understand with a spanner and a good ear. They were built to be rebuilt. A Gardner could run for 20 years with the right care. A Leyland 0680 could take abuse for a decade and still pull clean. And a Rolls-Royce Eagle? That thing ran until the chassis gave out. Now, you want to know what made these British diesel engines truly untouchable? It wasn't just their longevity or torque, it was what they survived. British hauliers pushed their trucks to the edge, day in and day out. Overloaded, overworked, underserviced, and those engines still kept firing. You'd see lorries hauling 50-ton loads through sleet, up cobbled hills, across wartime runways turned haulage routes, and under the bonnet. Still that same 6 LXB, still ticking, still loyal. In the 1980s, while other countries were moving toward turbocharged complexity, British lorries were doubling down on mechanical reliability. That meant engines like the Cummins L10 became the new backbone, a 10-liter straight six with solid-state injectors and industrial-strength pistons, the L10 took everything the UK's battered road network could throw at it. It didn't just pull, it clawed. Through rain, grit, axle-deep puddles, this engine was a bulldog in a steel kennel. The L10 wasn't flashy. It didn't need to be. It was chosen by fleets not for its noise or badge, but because it refused to quit. ERFs and Foden stuffed them into every spec they could. Some versions even broke the 300 horsepower mark. Massive for the time. And unlike some newer Euro imports, these engines could be rebuilt roadside, blindfolded, with 3 tools and a flask of tea. No diagnostics, just know-how. And that was the magic. These engines made mechanics out of men. Drivers knew how to listen to the tick of a gardener. They could tell if a Cummins was getting lean by the smoke color. They didn't need service lights, and they had instincts. In every cafe off the A1, you'd hear stories. A lorry that lost oil pressure halfway to Glasgow and still made it. A gearbox jammed in third that got a load from Hull to Dover. Always with the same punchline: the engine didn't quit. And then there was Scammell, British trucking's brutalist icon. Their heavy haulers ran Rolls-Royce C6 TFL diesels, big inline-6 beasts with a reputation for pulling impossible loads. Scammells weren't elegant, but they were feared. Ask any old-timer who ran military surplus gear through the 70s, and they'll tell you, if it was moving something stupid heavy across the Midlands, it probably had a Scammell badge and a Rolls-Royce engine making the frame scream. These engines powered an entire generation of British logistics. Factories ran lean, warehouses stretched their loads, drivers pushed time windows to the brink, and the lorries? They kept up because the engines never said no. They never ran hot, never gave up halfway. Even when the rest of the truck rattled apart, the block held together. One fleet owner once said, "The cab can rot, the tires can die, but if there's a gardener running, I've still got a truck." And let's not forget Perkins, the unsung hero of the light commercial scene. The Perkins Phaser and 6.354 diesels weren't big bruisers like the Gardners, but they punched well above their weight. Used in everything from Bedford lorries to Leyland four-wheelers, they were dependable, easy to fix, and practically allergic to failure. Farmers, builders, and local hauliers swore by them, some still do. So where did it all go? By the late 1990s, emissions rules and electronic engine management started creeping in. Turbos got smarter, computers replaced carburetors, diagnostics replaced intuition, and those classic British engines, they began to fade from the new fleet sheets. Gardner shut down, Foden was absorbed, ERF disappeared into the DAF vortex. The golden age of British diesel was over, but not forgotten. Because here's the thing, you can still hear them. At vintage lorry shows on rural hauls, even in a few stubborn fleets in the north, those old diesels still bark to life. You'll spot an old ERF B series, cab polished, smokestack coughing, gearbox howling through a non-synchro shift, and under it all, that unmistakable growl of a Gardner or a Leyland O series engine refusing to die quietly. Some run for nostalgia, others because frankly, they still work better than some new plastic truck. They don't care about DEF fluid or regeneration cycles. They don't throw error codes. They don't break because of a glitch in the ECU. They just run because they were built in a time when engines weren't designed to be replaced. They were designed to last. These engines weren't just pieces of machinery, they were the heartbeats of British haulage. They built cities, fed nations, pulled weight that broke other trucks, and they did it without whining, without failing, and without asking for a software update. The Gardner, the Cummins, the Leyland, the Rolls, the Untouchables. And if you listen carefully on a cold morning in some muddy lay-by, you might still hear one cough to life and start another day.